Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Peregrin, and I'm a nurse practitioner here at Palm Health. Today, I'm going to be reviewing a presentation previously given by my good friend and colleague, Kristen Ranker, nurse practitioner, on how to make the most of summer fruits and vegetables. Let me pull up here my presentation. All right. So I'm going to be talking to you guys today about why we like to eat seasonally, what our bodies need during the summer months, tips and tricks on how, and some fun recipes. In these summer months, we start to notice an abundance of produce in both grocery stores and farmers markets, but we can be prone to continuing our same routines and neglect produce we wouldn't otherwise typically purchase, which is why it's so important to eat seasonally. First of all, seasonal produce simply tastes better. When they're picked within season, they're going to be naturally ripened, have much more flavor and nutritional value. Secondly, it's just more affordable. I'm sure we've all noticed that out of season produce can be upwards of 3 times the price. When farmers have an abundance of crop in season, they're able to sell it at a lower price point, which allows for a great selection of things like corn, tomatoes, squash, and other veggies this time of year. You also get the benefits of eating local. You can support the local farmers, and less effort is needed in preserving the crops. Less preservatives, which is good for both our health and the environment. And you actually can utilize things such as a CSA box, which you can pick up either weekly or monthly from a local farm when they have that time of year. Ultimately, nature is really great when it comes to nutritionally providing what we need during the summer time of year. Now, before I jump into nutrients our body needs this time of year, let's talk about the biggest need, hydration. Drinking water is always important, but high temperatures and this time of the sun make hydration important for a healthy body. We recommend you drink half of your body weight in ounces of water per day. So as an example, if you're 150 pounds, we recommend 75 ounces or 9 cups a day. This may sound overwhelming, but if you get yourself a 32-ounce water jug and set a goal to have 1 drink by lunch and the second drink by dinner, it's very doable. I would aim to be done before evening activities, though, as the last thing you want is to be getting up and throughout the evening needing to use the bathroom. Being well hydrated also can really make you feel like a completely different person. It's great for the skin, helps with detoxification and gut function, and minimizes things such as fatigue and headache. We also think about how summer produce tries to help hydrate our bodies. Things like watermelon, zucchini, cucumbers, many of these have a pretty high water content, which also helps in maintaining summer hydration needs. For those of us who find drinking that amount of water difficult, you can consider adding some cucumber or citrus to your water for flavor. You can also freeze some watermelon to use as ice cubes, which infuses the water as it melts. And I also wanted to give some tips on how to pick the best produce. So for watermelon, what you want to do is lift up the watermelon. It should feel heavy, should have a thunk when you knock on it, and it should also have some yellowing on the bottom, which indicates it's had enough time in the sun, and usually translates to a sweeter, more flavorful watermelon. For cucumbers, they should be firm with no mushiness or discolorations, and you just want to avoid any brown or yellowing. Ultimately, these are all ways to try to increase our hydration during the summer, which is really important as our body has to work extra hard to manage its temperature. All right, so for anyone who finds that it's just hard to get all the fruits and veggies you need in a day, or even of those of us who struggle with getting in our water, smoothies can be a great way to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Especially in the summer, a nice cold smoothie can be a fabulous breakfast and kickstart to your day. So I have a nice recipe here for you. We'll get to that here in a bit, but it looks over some of the ways that we can see those, and it's got great ingredients for you. Another recipe here is a nice summer snack or appetizer, and that's these watermelon skewers. You're going to cut the cucumber slices into 1/2-inch thick pieces and the watermelon into 1-inch thick chunks. And then you can sliver red onion into either thick chunks or big chunks to put onto a skewer, some lime juice, some fresh mint for garnish, and then you layer them all up. You can squeeze the lime on top and add a pinch of chili powder and garnish with fresh mint. Chili powder is actually great to use on many sweet fruits. You can use it on watermelon, mango, pineapple. All are delicious, and it's nice to mix things up and add flavor. All right, so let's dive into the specific nutrients and vitamins we especially need during summertime. Right, vitamin C is an antioxidant that's found in anything from oranges to leafy greens and even into potatoes. Most of us are familiar with the increased need for vitamin C during wintertime for immune support, but summertime is also a very common time to need vitamin C as we expose ourselves to more summertime viruses and around more people, such as when we go to barbecues or parks. Ultimately, it plays a direct role in collagen production, neurotransmitter function, and overall immune health. How do we get it? For the average adult, a daily supplementation dose is here for you to see. It's a little bit different for women than it is for men. That's recommended. As a caveat, however, it's important to note that these are minimal dietary recommendations. Maintaining optimal levels and dosing for specific conditions, that need needs to be determined between an individual and their healthcare provider, and often are much larger than minimal dietary intake recommendations or what would be included in a multivitamin. Let's talk how to pick the best of each of these. So for tomatoes, you want to look for ones that are unblemished and free of any spots, soft spots. You want them to be firm, but not too tough. Berries should be brightly colored and free of obviously any mold. You can also add a small amount of white vinegar to water when you first get them to wash and rinse to minimize mold spores, and that tends to keep them fresher for longer. As for herbs, you want them to be fragrant. You want them to be standing upright. And you can actually keep them in a glass jar with a small amount of water, like you would want to use for flowers, and they will stay fresher longer. Next up is vitamin E. In the body, vitamin E acts as an antioxidant. It's a fat-soluble vitamin that can be found in foods such as eggs, meat, and tofu, but it can also be found in a lot of fruits and vegetables, albeit in smaller quantities. In addition to wearing sunscreen, vitamin E not only can protect the skin, but it also decreases the likelihood of damage. And heaven forbid you do get sunburn, it can help you recover from a minor sunburn faster with fewer symptoms. Total win-win. So you can actually take vitamin E capsules, you can pierce them open, and you can just apply that to the area, and that can help soothe the skin. So how do we get it? So the recommended daily amount is listed here for you for adult patients. We can find this in such foods as avocado and peppers and mangoes and peaches. So tips for picking the perfect avocado. I feel like this is quite the skill and something that you learn over time. As avocados ripen, the skin darkens. So when you go to the store, they'll be green and kind of darken to almost a black color, at least the Haas avocados that you can see in the grocery store. You do still want your avocado to be firm, but you want it to have some give. If it's too mushy, it's likely too far gone. If you purchase an avocado while it's still green and hard, though, you can speed the ripening process by putting it into a brown paper bag, and that can get things going a little quicker for your next avocado adventure. As for peppers, they can vary greatly regarding size, shape, and spice level. You want them to be firm and glossy and without soft spots. And as far as how spicy they are, it really varies based on the variety. So the best thing that I can tell people to do is if you're at the farmer's market, it's always best to ask the vendor for their recommendations. As for mangoes, and frankly, many pitted fruits, I feel like smell is the most important. If the fragrance is good, it's the best indicator of ripeness, and you want that skin to be leathery and smooth. You just want to make sure that when you go to eat mango, you don't want to eat it with the skin still on. That can irritate you. All right, everybody's thinking what I'm thinking with the ingredients from the last page. Let's go over a nice recipe that introduces all of those ingredients, a nice summer salsa. So what you want to do is finally chop some red pepper, some mango, and red onion. Optional would be to put some jalapeno in if you like it spicy. The trick when it comes to spice is a lot of the heat is in the seeds. So if you're not one that wants it terribly spicy, you get the seeds out, chop the actual meat of the jalapeno very finely, and it's more mild. Diced avocado is always really yummy to put into a summer salsa, but you do want to save that for the end. It tends to brown or oxidize when it's exposed to the air, and it can get kind of mushy. So I always save that for when I'm ready to serve. When you do serve it, putting quite a bit of lime juice on it will help keep it prettier longer. So you mix all the ingredients into a bowl with a squeeze of fresh lime juice and a pinch of cumin. You can serve it with grilled fish, chicken, or tofu. I particularly love this one with fish. All right, so let's move on to vitamin A. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble compound People know it as retinol, and it's something that's fairly common for us to talk about nowadays as far as the benefits of our skin and retinol. We typically get plenty of vitamin A from our foods, and you can see some of the foods that include vitamin A. But it's also important to get vitamin A in the summer as it can help protect our eyes. Definitely not an excuse not to wear your sunglasses just because you're getting enough vitamin A. How do we get our vitamin A? Adults should aim for a recommended daily intake of 700 to 900 micrograms. Again, I don't think most people are measuring this out, nor do you need to. You just want to try to eat colorfully and be mindful of some of the foods that exist in summer that are going to have high contents of that. There's mangoes, peaches, melons, cantaloupe, and dark leafy greens. So when you go to pick these from your farmer's market or the grocery store, for a melon, it's important to look for a surface that's free of mold. Obviously, you want to avoid the soft spots and you want to avoid any of the nicks in the skin surface. And it should have a nice hollow thud to it when you tap on it. We've already discussed mangoes. As for peaches, you want them to have a good give, but the smell, I feel like, is the biggest indicator. You also want to avoid the rock hard ones as they probably pick too early and tend to not have very much flavor. All right, so let's go on and look at a recipe, which is a spin on fruit salad. So you can mix these diced things, the mango, the melon, the peaches, summer berries, and mix it with like a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. Now the trick is to let it sit in the fridge for at least an hour. That kind of helps it macerate, really brings out the sweetness and the flavors. Then you can mix in some fresh basil and mint before serving. And for those of us that like crunch, you can toss in some coconut flakes. I particularly like them toasted, or some sliced almonds for that crunch. Moving on to vitamin D. We hear quite a bit about vitamin D and how beneficial it can be for multiple body systems. Vitamin D is a substance most commonly heard about in summer months because your own body produces it when you're exposed to the sunlight. However, the human body requires sunlight in order to regenerate this vitamin. This is exactly why winter produces mild deficiencies in those who don't spend much time in direct sunlight. You would think that our vitamin D level would be optimal in the summer, and albeit this is the time of year that our vitamin D is less or is likely to be at its highest, but our actual level varies based on a number of different factors: the time of day, our skin tone, age, and how much of our skin is exposed to the sun. Without sunblock and with adequate body exposure, the skin will absorb about 10,000 to 15,000 units of vitamin D with just one exposure. And sunblock does decrease the amount of D we absorb, but obviously the cancer-reducing benefits of sunscreen way outweigh the downside. So please continue to wear your sunscreen. Ultimately, though, it's understandable why vitamin D would be lowest in winter, but I think we have to be aware that we don't necessarily have optimal levels in the summer. This is one of those items that I would encourage discussing with your provider in order to make sure that your levels are optimal. Besides making your bones stronger, vitamin D also has effects on your immune system and increases your body's ability to absorb phosphorus and calcium, as well as developing good endurance. Whether you're spending more time at the beach, participating in outdoor sports and recreation, summer is a key season for this vitamin. How else do we get it? So when it comes to vitamin D, albeit we get it from the sun, but we can also get it from some of our vegetables and foods that we eat. Things like eggs, lean meats, and dairy if you can tolerate it. The recommended daily intake of vitamin D for adults is between 600 and 800 IUs per day, although that really truly varies. I think that that's what we would typically see in something like a multivitamin, but if someone has a vitamin D level that's suboptimal, you're going to see oftentimes that supplementation level can get to 5,000 IUs, even higher than that, depending on what your level is. So it's always something that's important to discuss with your physician. The other thing to be mindful is something as simple as zucchini contains phosphorus, which helps with that whole absorption pathway and also supports the bone. What I will tell you with zucchini, though, being in the summer, is that realistically, when it comes to picking zucchini is best if you get the smaller ones. You want them to be small and firm and unbruised, and avoid the really large ones. I feel like they have a higher water content, and they typically don't taste as good and can get kind of bitter. Now we can talk about some of the extra nutrients that you also want to be mindful of. The good old friend of vitamin D is vitamin K. You have to have enough vitamin K to be able to absorb your vitamin D. It helps it become more bioavailable and absorbable into the bone, and can be found in green leafy vegetables, which are obviously a plethora of availability in this time of year: kale, collard greens, sometimes in green beans too. When it comes to searching for leafy greens and what you're looking for, you want the leaves and the stems to be firm, upright, and without a sour or bitter smell. Other extra nutrients to be considerate of would be polyphenols. They're found in many summer herbs, which help prevent inflammation and provide a natural antioxidant property. When picking an herb, it should be fragrant, bright, and firm, and without obvious mold. And let's tie it all together with another recipe. So for this stone fruit arugula salad with herbs and asparagus, you want to grill or roast your asparagus until it's fork tender. You can toss it with some fresh arugula, summer herbs of choice. You can add in some thinly sliced fennel, red onion, and radish. Top with a stone fruit or choice such as a plum, peach, or nectarine. And I particularly like to sprinkle mine with a little goat cheese or feta, as long as you can tolerate dairy. Honestly, a lot of the crumbled cheeses, the dairy-free alternatives, taste really delicious as well. And I would encourage you to try those if you never have and you don't tolerate dairy very well. And then you can drizzle with a balsamic vinaigrette or a balsamic glaze and enjoy. It's also really nice to add some herbs such as dill. And frankly, if you see any of the things on these ingredients and go, ooh, I don't like that, I don't want to try it, by all means, substitute things out. You can try something like zucchini instead of the asparagus, just whatever your heart desires. There's just a plethora of vegetables that are available this time of year. Right. Ultimately, it's really important to have fun with food. Try a new vegetable you've never tried before, explore some new recipes, shop local at your farmer's market, and appreciate all that summer produce has to offer. If you're more interested in some of these details, you can check us out at palmhealth.com or reach out. I'd like to thank again Kristen Renker for preparing this presentation, and I hope that you all have enjoyed it. Happy summer eating.